Welcome to this seminar at Carla 2020. I'm very proud today to have some guests from India. It's the Women in Cinema Collective. And the first person I will start a conversation with is Bina Paul. Nice to see you.
Hi. Hi, Helen. Thanks for having us here.
You're an editor and you're also the artistic director of Kerala, International Film Festival of Kerala.
That's right, yeah.
But you're also one of the funders of this collective. And
that's right.
I'm very happy if you would like to share the story, how this collective started. We are in the spring 2017. What happened?
Well, before spring 2017, which was absolutely a devastating moment, I'd just like to reflect a little back because I'm a film editor and I have been working, as you can see from my gray hair, for years and years and years. And it was very interesting because I was the only film editor. I was one of the only film technicians in a region which produces close to about 180 to 200 films every year. Last year, it was 190 films we made. And there were just no women. I was working in studios, I was all alone and so on. And it used to always puzzle me because I had come from outside to this part of the world and I was really puzzled by this lack of any female presence. I mean, there wasn't even a toilet in the editing room where I worked because they never imagined there'd be a woman coming. There wasn't a woman's toilet. So this was the background. There was this great sense of isolation. There was, you know, we knew of the actors, we knew of one or two technicians. So there was this isolation, but I also was the film festival director and I was making interventions about women, showing films from women, trying to talk, teach, etc., and always being engaged with the fact that we were hardly anybody.
Sorry for interrupting you, Bina, but how come that you were there if you were the only woman?
Well, that's another story. I think I must say I can thank my parents for allowing me to dream and allowing me to go to film school, because at that time it was a very unusual choice. And I think a lot of women are unable to, because, you know, that dream is clipped right in the beginning where you say, oh, you can't get into film. So there's a whole attitude about women getting into film, which is very ingrained in our society. I don't know, I think it's everywhere actually. It's all over the world that, you know, women who get into film are a particular kind of woman, etc., etc. Yeah, so I went to film school and came here. So it was this kind of strange, isolated world where you were trying to do things and so on. I mean, at least as a film festival director, I was trying to make interventions, having discussions, so on. But what happened in 2017, February, was we suddenly heard, or through the news, we got to know that a very well-known actor, she was at the peak of her career, while she was in her workspace, in a sense, she was traveling from one place to another from a location. She was abducted and very badly sexually brutalized. Now, this was utterly shocking because, I mean, you know, just somebody you know, and the media just went to town and there was a lot of lip service paid by the industry, the film industry, to this girl who had had this problem. Now, there are two things very big about this. One is she went and reported to the police, which is very unusual because, you know, we've always heard that there's a lot of sexual abuse, but everybody's a little scared to report it. There are power lobbies, all sorts of things. So this was a very, very brave thing she did. She went straight to the police, she reported it. The second was the reaction of the film industry, where on the surface, there was great sympathy, there was great, solidarity with her and so on. But what we discovered that as the case unraveled, and there was a finding that a very top actor was involved and he was accused and put in jail, we suddenly saw the attitude of this film industry sort of changing. Through that period, a few of us, especially some of her friends, I think Rima, who's here with us, was one of them, suddenly started talking to each other. It's really interesting because it was WhatsApp. It's almost like the Arab Spring, because it was the WhatsApp that...
Sorry for interrupting there, but you told me when we spoke before that you were a group about 17, 18 women who started to have a conversation on WhatsApp.
On WhatsApp, yeah. So we just started this conversation.
Give me, and just give us a picture how that started.
Well, I think 2 or 3 people, I know that I was contacted by some close friends of hers saying, look, what's happening? Don't we have to stand by her? I contacted the people I knew. It was literally like, and suddenly we discovered that there was this group of us who had so much to say and had so much to talk about with each other, about not only the case, but also about what we were all going through individually, etc. So that was...
Ask a question there again, because I know, because as I understand it, it was very silenced before you started to organize. So were you afraid of speaking up, or how was...
Well, no, actually it's quite interesting because this was just like the bursting of a dam, where between us, suddenly we were all just chatting. There were these messages. It just was on WhatsApp in the beginning. We decided to meet. We decided on this name. And as we spoke, one of the first things we discovered was that there was very little information at all about women in the field of cinema in Kerala. So this was our first idea, that let us go to the chief minister of the state and request that he sets up a commission to inquire and look into gender issues in the state. Now, this was a very interesting moment because 19 of us, full of excitement, full of this newfound kind of energy. We got together, we spent 2 nights. I mean, it was the most amazing time. I don't know if all of us remember, Asha was there, Rima was there. This amazing 2 nights of writing up this letter, thinking about the issues. And we went to the chief minister. Now, this was such an, somehow the letter was very strong. I think Asha will talk more about the letter, but we sort of asked a lot of questions, a lot about work situations, about pay situations, etc. All this.
Did you feel that it was a he, I presume?
Yes. He was wonderful. He was absolutely wonderful. He was so, I think first he was so happy to see all of us together. We were all full of fun. We took a selfie with him. This selfie became kind of the icon of our group. And we came out of that meeting and suddenly everything changed because the media just descended on us. And it wasn't negative. It was just that we did not know ourselves what we had done actually, because suddenly we were a force, and that was the most, for me, that was the moment it clicked in my mind that yes, what we are doing is so important, because the whole of the media was there waiting, wanting to know what we did. Why did we go? Of course, the case was one side, but why were we getting together? Why isn't somebody else included? It was this huge media attention. So we started on this very high note, where there was great expectations. We were also very innocent. We reached out to the entire industry saying, oh, we want to work with you, etc. So this was almost the honeymoon period, if you know what I mean. But the case was going on. We were, we were constantly following up on that. This is February. In December at the film festival, I'm just sort of broadly telling you because we were using Facebook, we were, doing all sorts of things. Rima did a fantastic thing. She went on stage and, there was a whole lot of stuff that happened. But in December, what happened was that at the film festival, I had organized a discussion like this, but it was a live discussion on women in cinema in Kerala. And one of the, during the discussion, we called out some of the, very, very misogynist kind of content that there was. And Helen, that moment is again marked in my brain because everything again changed. Suddenly, I think the whole industry just flipped on us again. Yeah, they understood that we are, asking uncomfortable questions. We are just not a bunch of, little girls who are. So then that really went bad because the lady who spoke, she was a top actor at that time. She was trolled incessantly. People lost work. It was such a
punishment.
There was ostracization, there was punishment. I think Rima knows about that, Asha. I mean, everybody, Archana who's here, everybody, if you were associated with WCC, you were a bad name. Girls, women who were about to make films, had films, producers backing out. It was really the moment you discovered that when women organize, men organize, silently react, go back, hit back at you.
But you didn't give up.
We did not give up. We went on. So actually the journey has been one of, starting at a very high point, going very low actually. And there was almost fear. A lot of people did not want to own up to be part of the group. There was, that whole journey of, but I think what we have managed to do is one is the commission which was set up actually spoke to lots and lots of women who spoke about their problems, etc. Secondly, I think we defined ourselves as a labor force. Till now, women were either actors. Here we were a diverse bunch of women who were, saying that, look, we work in this industry and therefore unions have a responsibility towards us, associations have a responsibility, government has a responsibility, we have certain rights. So this was one thing. Secondly, we sort of posited ourselves as an advocacy group. So there was a bit of consciousness in the industry that arose, which is now, I mean, it was so dismal, Helen, at that point. There were no changing rooms for women. There were toilet facilities were not there. It was really bad. And I think post WCC, some of that has slightly changed, even in terms.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we should, because you have 4 of your colleagues, they are high.
Yeah, that's right. Let them go. Now, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so
don't be sorry.
Everybody has to.
I think we should invite them and also have them to give their reflections.
I think Rima will probably now be able to take the story forward or tell us about herself.
We have Rima, Muktha, Asha, and Archana. And we also have
Anna
Serner from the Swedish Film Institute, my country sister here, which I'm very proud of too. So Rima, if we start to give the word you welcome, you are an actress and you're one of the founding members of WCC. Could we hear what happened to you? It was your friend, and give us a little brief of your memory of this.
Oh yeah. So hi everybody. This was, I think we were all at a place in the middle of a film discussion at that point. And I remember watching my friend calling me up and telling me, watch the news, watch the news. And I switched on the TV and I saw the whole news about my friend having been abducted. And at that point, we didn't even know if she was safe. We were really worried. We started calling each other up.
Were you surprised? Did it surprise you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, we were dead shocked.
Yeah.
As in, see, we did know that there were a lot of sexism and there was, women were sidelined and all of that. But, nobody at any point thought somebody would be attacked, assaulted. We were not ready for that at any point. No. No, not in Kerala. We really thought of our state as a very safe place. So yes, we were really, really shocked. And there was, we were calling each other up and we were like, what's happening? And I remember we left, we were at another district. We came back to Cochin. I remember calling a very close friend of hers at whose place she was at that point. That is Ramya, another founding member of WCC. So I called her up and she said, yes, she's here, but she's going to meet the police commissioner. They have to take her statement. So I went there immediately. Her mother was there. We were all there together, I still remember. And we were watching the news. She had gone to the commissioner's office and we were watching the news. And I remember at that point, a certain media channel reporting, the whole attitude towards a case about a female artist was, like Bina Paul was saying, there was a lot of lip service. They were all kind of talks about why was she traveling at night, or what was her relationship with the driver. I mean, there were all kind of allegations that were just thrown out into the air at that point. And I think all as women, when we came together, apart from how the industry reacted to this whole incident, we were also really worried about how as a society we look at a female actor. We were really worried about that, the kind of treatment we are meted out with just because we work in a platform like cinema. But I remember meeting her after all of this. She came back and I remember meeting her. And I must say, I think we're all sitting here and talking because of her energy, because of the way that she said, I'm taking this case forward. I want to register a case. I want to take this forward. And I remember how brave she was. And Helen, it was like, even when I think it's been 3 years since, and I still can feel that about how brave she was and how clear she was that, she's not going to keep quiet. That is what took us forward. For sure.
Thank you for sharing this, Rima, and listening to you, because Bina mentioned this strong energy, and I could feel that energy now when you talk, and I can also see on your colleagues here. But why do you think it's really, is that solidarity, or what is it when you get this, because this terrible, terrible, terrible situation you're describing, and then the force that happened between you, it's, what is it?
You know what, Ellen, I actually felt ashamed at that point, if you ask me, that, it took such an incident for us to sit up and take notice of what's happening around us in the society. But, the industry as well as the society that we live in, it had to take this. Somebody had to go through this for us to kind of take notice and talk about it. But then now that she has stood up and said, she's not backing out, I thought it is time. Now we have to stand up and talk and back her. And, at the same point, at the same time, I have been in the industry for 10 years. All these years, it's just the silence. We just go with the flow. It's okay. You're asked to compromise. You're asked to remain silent. And we all thought it was fine. This is how it works. What can we do here? We've never felt empowered. The minute you come into the industry, you're always told that, you're dispensable. um, you know, and we never thought of coming together and, speaking up about our rights or, how we're treated here. We never ever thought about it. But this changed all of that. This kind of changed everything.
I'm so happy to hear, and thank you very much for sharing, Rima. Archana, because the backlash that come, would you mind to give us, because you were punished. It was really an effort for all of you who invested in this strong force, but could you share a bit about that, Archana?
Yeah, yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
And I should also say that you are an actor curator, and you are one of the founding members of WCC. Yeah.
Archana.
Yeah, Archana. Okay.
Okay. So I think I'm not actually a founding member. I joined WCC at a later stage, and I mean, Rima was explaining the whole story. I mean, how it all happened. And at the same time, simultaneously, when this case and the issue was in newspapers as headlines, I was having a similar kind of experience, kind of physical harassment at the workplace in another film set. So I was watching all this. I was witnessing to the emergence of women in cinema collective, sitting in that set, like experiencing the same, a different kind of insult. And I was trying to fight with the team. I was trying to report it to the director, to the association. And, I never had the courage to go and register a case in the police station. So it was after the emergence of Women in Cinema Collective that I actually approached them. I didn't know anybody. It was Asha Joseph, who's sitting here, who's also one of the founder member. She was there in Facebook. I was like trying to search all these people, all these women who are making this movement. And I messaged her, I have this issue and I would like to talk about it. So that's how I became a small part of WCC. And then gradually I started owning up the space. And just after that, there was one press meet where we were actually trying to talk about the reaction of AMMA, which is an actors association. They were very pathetic responding to these actors' case. They were actually supporting the person who was accused. So, who's also in the industry, who's a big star. So we were actually responding to all these things on a press meet, and these women around me have given me a mic and said, I mean, whatever you want to say, if you would like to, you can just say. So that was a moment of, I mean, I didn't know it was turned Me Too then, but then I felt empowered after expressing myself, my concerns. I was quite angry. I was quite emotional, but then I felt empowered because of these women around me. So it was, I was not really bothered about the kind of opportunities that I lose, because I have already been in conversation with all these women, and I have been, I've been in a way politicized in the process, so that I felt it's important that I say. And I say there is misogyny in content and in workplace, and we need to do something about it. And there was this media who was a kind of, it was like an attack. Media people sitting in a press conference trying to attack us. And it was a kind of emotional reaction, outburst from me. But then I think that whole events, the whole experience have actually made me evolve and somehow became a kind of energy to move on and work with our own medium somehow. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Archana. Asha, Dr. Asha Achy Joseph, you're a filmmaker and you're also Dean at Sacred Heart College. Please take the next part of this story.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We are very humbled that we, that we could connect to you, all of you, in Women in Film and Television International, and especially Anna and you, Helen. So thank you for the opportunity. I would just connect to what all these three women were saying, my colleagues, because I was at a different point of my life where I was, as you said, I am an academician, but I also do make films at times. And we have as you know, we have different streams in filmmaking. One is the commercial, the popular films, and the independent films that we call. So, there are 2 or 3, maybe more streams as we know. So,
I think your is the connection
also being looked at.
We have a little problematic
audible
connection.
Your connection is a little weak, Asha, I think.
Okay. I'll just check.
Maybe it's the headset. I don't know. But if you deal with that, maybe I should ask Muktha to give you perspective, and you can have a look at your system, Asha. Muktha, you're on mute, so please unmute yourself.
Yes, am I audible right now? Am I audible?
You are, we hear you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, and it's lovely to share screen with so many women. And I think I was thinking about talking about how we function as a collective, and before which I think I should address how flawed our industry itself is. We, as an industry, I think cinema industry is something which works on rejection, where basically when you're projecting something, you're rejecting a lot of other material as well. So I think it was at a juncture like that when a group of women decided to, stand up for justice and march to the CM's office asking for justice. And by doing this, I think they were also trying to, own the limelight back. And by doing that, they were also shedding light onto several women whose cries and their unheard pleas and cries and whispers. So I think this marks this is why WCC is very important. And as how Bina clearly mentioned, how we emerged as a group, it did begin on, yes, hues and cries, but again, like Rima clearly said, that energy did drive us forward very much, especially when a woman, after sexual assault, she decided to stand up and say, I will like to complain. And that was also a declaration that to even change our perspective towards being a survivor or a victim. And that inspired us to keep going forward. And I think this is quite a heroic, or rather I should say heroic, upsurge, and quite a feministic upsurge in the history of cinema itself. We did not have precedents of this kind in Indian cinema or Malayalam cinema for that matter. And it is also important to note that, like you had mentioned earlier, that this happened quite before the #MeToo and the #TimesUp movement, which later happened in Hollywood.
May I ask you a question there, Muktha? Because when that happened, because this happened in the spring, and then in, I think it was November 2017, what did you think in your collective when the whole world suddenly started to talk about the same thing that you did?
I did join the collective later. I think the founder members should probably but otherwise, it was quite inspiring, to be very honest. It was quite exciting. And the way they marched to the CM's office, I don't think nothing was as cinematic as that. And I don't think cinema is as cinematic as that march. And that was quite exciting. And like I said, I became part of the movement later on. And from an outsider, was extremely excited to see these women up there. And then later on being an active, engaging partner, being part of the teams, it was quite different, because that was when we came to realize that it was not as cinematical, and it did have a lot of backlashes as well, and it did hold a lot of us responsible for the things we did. And then how I came into this is, I think, by a set of queries about why the industry still functions this way, and why is our content continuing to be severely anti-women, and why do we still not have representation? Why do we have too many misrepresentations? And most importantly, the question which never was raised is, why are we continuing like this? Why is it not being questioned from within or outside the industry? And that is what actually brought me into WCC, because I think the founder members, to the question you asked, I think the founder members will give you a better clarity. But like I said, as an outsider, it was quite exciting, and later on being part of the movement was quite a different experience. And
do you think it influenced your position? Because this backlash of yours, I know that some of you were punished, and that was affected, that you didn't get the jobs, etc. But then that changed.
Definitely, yes. But then I think we were also the ones who joined later were quite aware of what they were being part of. And also they were ready to sacrifice for the better good, for the future and all of that. So for the rest of us, I think it was more of a known decision. And for founders, I think they probably did not gauge it, did not know to what extent it is going to affect them, though they were aware for definite, undoubtedly they were aware, because they were, it was a battle against the lower celebrated forms of patriarchy. So not that they were not aware, but for us, I think we were much more aware, and we knew what the backlashes would be. But that was a very conscious decision.
Thank you very much, Muktha. So I hear that you all are very brave, and you also work for what's very important for you, and heroic, I would say that word. And that's really, you're a hero, Anna. What do you have been very brave. You have been a front runner. What do you hear when you listen to these ladies? What do you think of?
Well, first of all, it's so amazing to hear all your stories about this, because it really resembles for what we are all fighting for in the whole of the world. There is no difference. And what you have started in India and in your community is what I understood when I was given the stories from the Swedish Me Too stories of this horrible, we all know that women are being suppressed, and we all know that there are some sexual harassments, but the violent rapes that we were told about, and the women that have been sacrificed within the system, because for me it was very clear in Sweden that the system was taking care of the perpetrators, so they could keep on doing things. And when I hear you, I can really hear the breath of something new that is not accepting. And for me, that is as well what I can see in Sweden, that it continues, it's continuing without being as obvious, and hopefully the most violent rapes and the most open sexual harassment have been shut down. But we all know that we haven't changed the system yet. We just work on it. But suddenly, the Me Too movement in Sweden, first it was taken by astonishment, and then was the backlash of questioning the women, and then who is she, and that was so long time ago, and about her, she has always been, and blah blah blah. But then again, now I really think that the trajectory in the conversation has changed, that we all understand that we cannot continue in the same way. And I think that is what I hear from you as well, that you have passed some steps, and you certainly have steps to go, and we all have, but there are some fundamental changes that you have been able to do. And I'm very, I'm really taken by that you, as a very small community, have been able to do this without the Harvey Weinstein thing. But I think that everything, when we are doing these things, we do it by building on what somebody else has done. And for me, it was very clear that Harvey Weinstein wouldn't have been sentenced if there hasn't been a movement before that. And the movement was, of course, we all know that it started in the, in the 50s and the 60s and building on slowly. But in 2015, when Kate Blanchett and Emma Watson and all those really big Oscar stars started to speak out how it is being a woman, things were changing all over the world because people were getting more aware. And I think that we should really, it's so great that you're recording this and that we share globally what is happening so it doesn't get stuck in small communities, because I'm sure that we will have more backlashes. And then we need to remind ourselves within the different groups that there are others that benefit. And maybe that is what makes us braver, because we can see that there have been women before us that were brave, and that we have a duty actually to alliance and give each other strength. That shouldn't stay within a country or within a small industry, but because it's all the same in all the world. So yeah, I can really feel that I'm almost part of your group. I wish I was.
I think you are. Asha, what's happening now? What's the strategies you have with the collective?
Yeah, I think I was just completing what I was saying earlier. Thank you, Anna, for that, because we feel very empowered by people saying these things again and again. I think we need to empower each other like this, and thank you. We are actually at a very special stage of organizing, because once this whole sexual harassment case happened, but then after that, how to move ahead is a very big challenge, because as you know, women are just bodies in any cultural industry throughout the world, and then to talk about women's equal spaces and equal opportunities needs a lot of empowerment, both to the society as well as to the industry as such. So we are actually in the process of preparing ourselves as a collective, as well as preparing the society and the women around, because as we know that we are most of the time heterosocial in a lot of interactions, because we ourselves as women to get together and to be establishing a sisterhood takes a lot of time. So we are at that point, and we have kind of realized that the collective leadership is very important, because we can't be having hierarchies again. So we are kind of forming small groups and giving certain tasks to smaller groups. For example, we have Archana here, who is kind of taking the leadership with another group of women in PK Rossi Film Society. PK Rossi happens to be the champion in Kerala's film industry. I mean, the first actor who was, back maybe about 90 years back, thrown out because she was an underprivileged woman acting in another, the first film in the Kerala history. From that woman, we have taken up the name, and then we have put a film society which actually talks about the aesthetics of content and how that people or women together can make content. That is one thing. And we have a research network which is again named after the first woman director in Indian industry.
We're losing you a bit again, Asha. So
okay.
Thank you very much, because what I heard is that you deconstructing the patriarchy inside your network. So maybe
yes.
you, Bina, could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it sounds really interesting.
Well, that is one of the most challenging sort of tasks we have taken on upon ourselves. Very early on when we did meet, we thought that we don't want to sort of replicate other associations or other forms of patriarchal hierarchy. So we decided that we don't have a president, we don't have a vice president, we don't have all that. I mean, for registration purposes, we do, and most people don't even know who's who in that. But for working purposes, we decided instead to break up into groups. But this is the biggest challenge, because as you know, democracy is the biggest challenge ever. So to write one line on Facebook, you need about 25 days to get it through. So this has been a hard task, but we've all really learned.
Is it worth it? This experiment of yours, is it worth it?
Well, absolutely. I am a great believer that this is the only way we can function. We have to become more efficient, but this is the way, because this is the only way we will all take onus, and we will everything, you see, because to understand that we come from situations where we are so disempowered, either as an actor or as an assistant director, to re-enter a space and again have to be answering to somebody is not what we're thinking. We are thinking that, look, we are all in this together, and everybody has a voice, and everybody has the power to make or break a decision. The other very interesting thing about the collective is that it's such a diverse group of women. We have actors, we have top actors, we have top producers, we have Rima, others like that. You have old women like me who have sort of finishing off their careers, and you have Muktha, so it's assistant directors. So you have a very diverse group of women who are all looking at these ideas for the first time. Very often it is for the first time that somebody as an assistant director is even conscious that she's a woman, that she has rights, that she has. So it is a very, very tough, time consuming, and sometimes there are disappointments. There is also a lot of mocking at a lot of people in the industry. If you ask, perhaps some people in the industry, they'll say, oh, WCC, it's a bunch of losers, no work women, all that, that does happen hell of a lot. But I think within ourselves, we know what we want. We are trying to find, common ground among ourselves and make that difference. Yeah. It's not easy. I would just say it's one of the biggest challenges.
When we met the first time, you and I, we are both grandmothers, and we so agreed. Life is not easy. It's not easy to have kids either. So why should space would be easy? You also said when you said that Anna is really a role model for you, and you said, I have so many questions for her. So I thought, shouldn't you take the opportunity that you could also?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anna is open to answer questions. So use these last minutes to ask Anna questions, if you're fine with that, Anna.
Of course.
Yeah, Asha.
Once as well, I can see.
Yeah, Anna, I just was thinking about one thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. because we have heard so much about Sweden and the democratic practices and, you know, all those things. And the women who are, as you said, you have a system there, or you know, the system is taking care of a lot of things, but still you have a lot of things to do. Here, our problem is we don't have a system in that sense, and the cultural industries themselves are not really defined in terms of you know, the work practices and you know, the women's space and things like that. So how do you see such countries getting on with the 50-50 agenda?
To understand your question, how do we, within sort of a system that should work but still doesn't, how do we continue the 50-50 agenda?
Yeah.
Or how would you advise us to also sort of both together?
Well, I think what you're doing is really the most important thing, and that is to find an alliance that you can work within. And I think that is really important, but I think it's important as well to understand that there is a danger in my world when you become a too close network. Because if you're a network where everyone wants something that nobody can give, it really challenges to become a whining network, and that's energy draining. And I think for me and a lot of women I meet around the world, the most important thing for all of us is to keep up the energy. How do we keep up the energy even though the pace is too slow? And networks can be great, but they can be energy drainage as well. So I think that one of these things is really good, to meet women or men around the world that you feel can give you something. And that is to really reach out into new circles and to see where are the circles where you can get energy and maybe they have power to help you. There are, I mean, we do have a system, and the system is pretty gender equalitative ground. When it comes to the culture ground, yeah, I can see that now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I try. I don't know what happened. That we, our legislative ground is very stable, but the culture ground is as patriarchal and unequal on all levels as any other country. Challenge the cultures and the people that are in. You hear me?
Yeah, not so good.
Yeah,
so
the people.
I can steal the word from you because I can also say, because you've been very brave, Anna, but when you hear about the backlashes, you also have had backlashes and have to take a lot of fight. So you must know that abroad, Anna, they only see the sweet fruits, but I know living in the same country is such a actually painful and big work you have done. So that's what I hear when I also listen to you Indian sisters, that this kind of challenges, I think that's part of the process when you challenge the structures and the systems. So yeah. So
yeah, and if I try again, just to say that I think that you should try to reach out to other people in power to be on your side, even though they are not in the film industry. Try to reach out outside the film industry as well. Bina.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, I mean, what was the kind of process you underwent? Because Helen was telling me you came up with a set of ideas and you, so if you could just talk about it, I think it would be nice to just hear it from you, how you sort of undertook the actual process of undoing this a bit.
Yeah, I will try, and Helen, you can wave, because for me it looks like I'm all on air all the time. Well, it was really, I got a position as a CEO of the Advertising Association in Sweden when I was 34. And being a woman, I was challenged immediately to answer questions about my family life and how I was going to manage the work within a private sort of sector instead of asked question about the work. So and being a feminist all my life, I mean, I was answering out from that position. And there are very few women in leading positions that actually are outspoken about gender equality. So I became a person that all the reporters called all the time because I was the only one speaking out. And I got so sick of my own words. So I decided to start to act and stop talk. Because when you talk, everyone are agreeing, but nothing happens. So I started the strategy to do whatever and let that action be the topic to talk about. So I started a leadership course for female creatives in the advertising industry. I started a book that was written by female copywriters, and everything I did got a huge media attention because it was new. So, of course, the book by itself, or the leadership course, which was for, it was maybe 40 people taking it all over the years, that didn't make change, but the conversation in media started waking other people up. So when I came to the Swedish Film Institute, I was very well known as being an outspoken feminist in the media. So I knew that I would be given the question immediately what I was thinking about the gender inequality in the Swedish film industry. So I understood that I would never escape not doing things. So I started immediately saying that I thought it was unacceptable and a catastrophe with the poor numbers of female directors, and that I was giving myself 6 months to find out what kind of actions I would do, and that I wanted the industry to help me to achieve gender equality. And I said, I will give myself 4 years. And by the end of the 4th year, if the period doesn't show gender equality by that time, we are counting over years. I said, I don't know, but I'm not afraid of quotas. So I was threatening. And that really had an impact. So everyone realized that I was serious. And I think that's the most important thing for a leader to say, what are you willing to give up? And what are you willing to do to actually reach a target? And as I was so clear, everyone got scared that they would miss out of money. So the production companies started calling the female directors, and then the female directors got the position, and then the female directors were invited to the festivals, and then the female directors won the prizes. So suddenly everyone realized that, whoa, they maybe are able to do films actually. Not only the few tokens that were given the chance before, because we've always had a few women picked out. But then suddenly everyone realized if we want a production company to get money from the Swedish Film Institute, we will have to show that we work with female filmmakers. And they started to do that. And I think for many production companies now, it's natural to have a more diverse crew or diverse setup of talents that they work with. We, of course, still have a long way to go, but it's the idea of waking up, enlightening by knowledge, and to keep the conversation always going by throwing in new topics. And so we do that by counting a lot of things, but we are counting every support we give, but we try to count many things. And then we make reports that are written. We have counted the money in the film industry and how that has affected women. And as soon as something gets published, the media attention suddenly gets much higher. And we are now doing a report of women with another background than being a white Swedish heritage for centuries. How is it being a Black woman in Sweden? And that's next step.
Age.
And age. So it's about racism and age discrimination. And I really, and I think that will be the next step that we all have to include, that there are intersectional aspects that we have to embrace and have to start to talk about. But you have to throw in new fire burning stuff all the time. And I think that is really the strategy.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing so generously. We are a little bit over time, but I think we can have one, if someone else of the others would like to ask Anna a final question. Is anyone? Yeah, Rima? Archana, sorry. Can you unmute?
Rima, we can't hear you.
Yes. No, Anna was actually talking about being intersectional, and so I was about to ask that question in a different way, because WCC and even PK Film Society, we are like in a very reflective phase, constantly reflecting ourselves. But yes, since we are the people who have been at least given the access to get into the industry, which means we are somehow privileged. And Film Society is somehow we're trying to actually generate new filmmakers from the region, somehow teaching cinema, trying to engage with the public. It's been a constant conversation between us, and how to handle the power equations within us. How are we, negotiating each other? How are we understanding each other? So it's quite a learning process for us to actually being. It's a process of sensitizing ourselves in the process. So I would really like to know your experience of working with women in that sense.
Well, I think that there is a lot of myths, at least in Sweden, in regards of women not supporting each other and women backstabbing each other. And I have really not, of course, there are women that are not agreeing with me or with Helen. But I think that there is a big solidarity between women. But there are women that might sometimes feel excluded. And I think that is up to us that have found our way to really include everyone so they can feel that they are being spoken to directly. So what I've now started to do is, before I make the next fire cloth thrown into the fire, that I actually engage groups of women before. And I give them information before. So instead of having the challenge on they might be opposing, they are actually contributing. And that is very hard because we all know that things take so long time. And I am a very impatient person. I really, you know, when I have an idea, I want to make it happen. And but like this new report that we are doing about Black women, it has taken us, I thought it would take us half a year, and it has taken us 1.5 years now. Because if you want to include for real, that means that it will take longer time. But I think in the end, it's worth it. But sometimes you just have to do things as well. You can't wait every time for everyone to feel included, but invite people to not only get a status quo, this is what you get, but actually we have this idea, what do you think? What do you want to bring in with us? And do you want to join us? And I think that goes for men as well, because I think this is not a fight only for women. This is a fight for men and women, and they need to be included as well. And they definitely feel very excluded right now. And that is not sustainable in the long run.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you all. And thanks to you who visited Carla 2020 and were listening to this fantastic Women in Cinema collective representing the Malayalam cinema from Kerala in India. Thank Bina, thank Rima, thank Asha, Archana. Thank you very much, Anna Serner, who shared your experiences from your ongoing victory journey you're on. We are so happy for you. So thank you very much.